There are many different things that had to happen in order for Lumumba to be killed. And you can point fingers correctly at Belgians who did stuff. And, the Belgians were involved in the transfer. You can, of course, point the finger at Mobutu, who came up with the whole idea. But there was this key American link, which was Devlin giving the green light, without which this would not have happened. And also to back up, I mean, at every single link in the chain of events leading up to Lumumba's death, there's an American role. In terms of Kasavubu, the president, firing Lumumba, Americans pushed for that. Mobutu taking power in a coup, Americans pushed for that. Mobutu being supported while he was in power and a peace deal to bring Lumumba back to power being opposed, Americans were behind that. The capture of Lumumba, an American hand, etc. So the broader context here is the CIA had its fingers in so much of the events and so many of the events that led to Lumumba's death. But yet, as you were suggesting, it really is a case where individual decisions made by single individual people had hugely consequential decisions for history.
Yeah. So when Lumumba is sent to Katanga and then is he held in a cell before he's driven out into the woods where you spoke to the hunter and was it the son that saw them?
He's detained in a house and tortured. There's sort of an empty house that he's dragged into, and there he's tortured by soldiers and by the ministers of the secessionist government of Katanga. Moise Chambe, the president of independent Katanga, as he called himself, stained his suit with blood when he had a turn sort of slapping around Lumumba. So Lumumba's final hours, he was tortured the whole flight on the way there, are this just, despicable, tragic story of torture and abuse. And he, suffered up until the very end.
And he's with two other people in his own party, like two accomplices, essentially.
Two, political allies who had also been arrested and put in military prison with him. The three of them were flown to Katanga and killed together.
How much do we know graphically and verbally what was going on in the house that Lumumba was being tortured after he got off the plane, and then those moments leading up to when he was taken out to the woods and shot? Like, do we know exactly what he was saying, or do we know what other people were saying and doing? How specific is that record?
We know quite a bit because there were so many people involved, and many of them talked. There was a Belgian academic who, in fact, had been on the ground in Katanga at the time, wrote this PhD dissertation in the 80s or 90s, I forget, which was secret for a long time, but eventually released. And that thesis included interviews with all these people who were present in the hours before Lumumba's death. So that's a huge source that I drew on. There's also a book by a Belgian sociologist named Ludo de Witt called The Assassination of Lumumba, which focuses heavily on the Belgian side and drew on that dissertation, which was also very useful. So the record actually is in those final hours is very thorough, and we know a lot about sort of the gory details of Lumumba's final hours. We also know what happened to his body afterwards, which was that it was buried, exhumed, reburied, re-exhumed, and then dissolved in sulfuric acid. So even after death, there was a sort of desecration that took place.
So he essentially he was tortured, beaten to an absolute pulp,
and then shot.
And then I guess they were worried about people finding the bodies, which is why they dug it up so many times and eventually just dissolved it in acid.
Exactly. There was to be no evidence. And for a while, it was a big mystery what happened to Lumumba. And not many people, a lot of people assumed he was dead, but it wasn't clear. And the secessionist government came up with this sort of cover story where they claimed that Lumumba had been, we didn't kill him, we just detained him, and then he tried to escape and some villagers killed him, which was a lie they made up to avoid getting flack for doing the actual act.
Yeah. And did you say Mobutu was present at Lumumba's death when he got
No,
shot, or he?
Moise Chambe, who's the leader
Okay.
of secessionist Katanga, was present at various times that night.
Okay. And when you were in the Congo, you said you spoke to the man who witnessed Lumumba's death. Was he aware of the gory details of everything that happened? Like, is that sort of well-known Congolese history, or did he just know that Lumumba was killed and you were sort of filling him in on, like, yeah, this is what happened before and after?
I'm not sure how much he knew. What I do know is that the things he said matched up with the other pieces of the record that we know. And, I don't think this man had, read the academic treatises on Lumumba's final days and hours, but the things he said sort of matched up with that. So I had every reason to believe him. But yeah, he just witnessed he was walking, he was on a hunting trip with his father. It was late at night. They were sort of in this remote clearing, and then they noticed this cars turn off the road. And then he witnessed what happened, and he and his father hid behind an anthill. They had their lanterns with them, and I mean, he just had this incredible detail of the things he had witnessed.
Wow. You also spoke to Lumumba's son and daughter, right?
Right.
What was that conversation like?
I was so grateful for the chance to talk with them because, I mean, at the core of this story, yes, it's about politics and the Cold War and militaries, but at the core, it's about a human, a man who was a husband and father, and these children lost their father at an early age and in a particularly violent way, and didn't even have his body. So it's just I can't imagine what that would have been like. So I was very pleased that they were willing to talk with me and share their memories. They were both young at the time. I spoke with Francois and Juliana, who were, I forget exactly, but maybe Francois was 10 when his father died, and Juliana was 5, let's say, something like that. And so, maybe a little older than that. But they were young, but old enough to have memories of their time with their father. And so, what they were really useful for was naturally not the big political picture or dates or broader context, but just details about what it was like and how they, Juliana told me about playing on the balcony of her house and looking out and seeing these troops surrounding the house and wondering why. She told me about fond memories she had playing with his father or her father, or missing him when he was traveling out of town, that sort of thing. So yeah, it was an honor to meet them, and I was thrilled that they were willing to take the time to share their memories, and it helped me add that human element to the story, to remind readers that this wasn't just a